Hi, welcome to our second installment of government videos for Chapter 1, and today we're going to be looking at what governments should do. So last time we talked about having no government, that would be complete anarchy, and we found out that when you have anarchy, you are the least free, because at every moment you're expecting someone to shoot you, knife you, steal stuff. You're constantly on guard, you're constantly defending for everything, and you're spending all your time trying to make a little something and then the rest of your time trying to defend it. The Dark Ages were a period of pretty amazing anarchy. Out of that, people said, well, I can't have that total chaos, so I've got to have some strong person in charge. And you had the Age of Kings through the Middle Ages, where a lot of people created order, but they also created a lot of tyranny, a lot of oppression, that it was rather capricious, and it was just the whims of these kings. And so people after the Age of Kings were sort of drawing to its close, they were writing about what should a government do. And so there were lots of writers like Rousseau and Blackthorne and Thomas Hobbes and John Locke, two of the people we're going to talk about in detail. This is what political scientists really do. They study the goods and bads of what a government should be like. What are going to be the effects of the choices you make and how you form a government, and what is the nature of government in and of itself. So there are lots of classes you can take in college on political science. This is sort of like an introduction to all those kind of courses. So what should a government actually do? And it turns out our founding fathers studied this intently and debated it in several constitutional conventions, which you've probably learned about in your history classes, I hope. The founding fathers said, look, there are four main things that a government should do, and that's it. Our founding fathers were seeking a very limited government. And we know this because the first government that was installed after the Revolutionary War was something called the Articles of Confederation. The Articles of Confederation were extremely weak. Every colony, all 13, had to agree on what was going to be done, or it wasn't going to happen. And so in that time, they agreed on precisely 0 things. So they made a government that was so weak that it literally was not a government. It was a very pretend sort of thing that they were doing. So they said, we've got to strengthen this government, but we don't want to let it get out of control. And so what they did is they created something called a constitution. And we're going to learn more about that in Chapter 4, but a constitution is a box. And you put government inside the box, and these are the boundaries that government should not go outside the box. But within that box, what should they be allowed to do? What things do we need a government for? If you remember last time, government is primarily force. And so we can't have everyone using force however they want. That's anarchy. So if we're going to monopolize the use of force, we're going to put it in the hands of one group, and we're going to call it the government. What kind of force can they use, and what kind of force can they apply to its citizens and to the world in general? So what the framers did is they put this in the preamble to the Constitution. Founding fathers put it in the preamble to the Constitution. And you should have all memorized that. If not, it's in your book, and I can show you where that is, or you can look in the table of contents if you need. But the preamble to the Constitution says, we the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, and promote the general welfare to ensure these blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, we do ordain and establish this United States of America. So you can see right there are 4 main things that they're talking about, and you want to write these down and know them, because this is going to be one of your essay questions. Number 1, the first thing that our founding fathers wanted was to establish justice. They said the most important thing of all that governments do is that they have courts. You have to have a referee when people disagree. So you remember back in our first lesson with anarchy, you got 2 people with a disagreement. The only thing they can do to decide it is shoot it out. But that's not a very good thing for your society. So those 2 people must be able to appeal to a higher power that's going to decide things, who's right and who's wrong. And in these cases, it's going to be decided based on the law. So in order to do that, you have to have courts. You could think of them as referees. The government has to be above the interests of the individual, and they are going to be the referees that are going to decide rightness and wrongness in people's behavior and business and things like that. So the number one thing you have to have is courts. They have to be established so that they can referee things, and they have to be law-abiding and law-focused courts. All right. The second thing, it says, ensure domestic tranquility. Now, we don't talk like this anymore, but ensure means to guarantee. Domestic is inside your borders, and tranquility is peace. So who guarantees the peace inside our borders? That was going to be the police. The police are the ones responsible for going after criminal behavior. Anytime there's a violent dispute, they stop that. Anytime there's a theft, they pursue that person and try and get the stolen goods back. So that is the job of the police, to ensure domestic tranquility. And that's definitely another use of force. And so who backs up the courts in their decisions of law? The police are the ones that back that up. That is the force that is applied in order to make sure that things are stable and smooth. Okay, so this is the second thing that our founding fathers wanted. The third is provide for the common defense. Okay, so you had 13 states or colonies at that time. They weren't so interested in being one unified unit, except when it came to defense. If they're going to be attacked by a foreign power, British, French, Spanish, whoever it is, then those states will, for the interest of all 13, band together for that common good, and they will have a defense force, and today we call that our armed forces. So the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and Coast Guard apparently is in there too. Okay? So these are our armed forces, and therefore providing for our common defense. So again, the use of force, but it's put in the hands of the government so that we can determine who are we going to attack or defend our country from in that case. The fourth one, promote the general welfare. Now this is an interesting one, and has caused the most problems than any of the others combined. Promote the general welfare. What our founding fathers meant by that was basic rules for all. So it had to have two concerns. It had to have a basic rule that needs to be determined by the government, and it has to be something that generally affects all people in the United States. For example, do you drive on the left-hand or the right-hand side of the road? It doesn't matter, but you've got to pick one. Either it's everyone on the right or everyone on the left. As long as we're clear about that, that will be promoting the general welfare. That would definitely help. And it is a basic rule, and it is for all. Okay? So those are the things that they were looking for in that regard. Things such as money. If you have one kind of standard money, that makes things a lot easier, and so everyone knows what it is, what it looks like, what its stamp is as far as it's official, and it's a basic rule. This is money for all. Okay? And that's why I underlined the for all in there, because that was the real key that has very much been lost throughout history and time. All right. So if I was to point out the problems, point number 4 is the most abused ideal. What has happened in the United States? How did government get outside of the box that our founding fathers put it in? It is point number 4. Because what has happened over the years is that anyone who wanted something for their benefit went before the government and said, oh, well, look, it's promoting the general welfare. I mean, yeah, it benefits me a lot, but, it'll generally help everyone, right? And so government has been able to expand its powers through point number 4, this general welfare. For example, nowhere in the Constitution does it say we need an education department. But a bunch of people who wanted to have government power and education at the national level said we need an educational department. It promotes the general welfare. And sometimes the Supreme Court would say, no, we're not going to allow that. But other times it would say, yeah, okay. And once one thing was allowed, why not a Department of Commerce to help business? Doesn't that promote the general welfare? Why not a Department of Energy? Why not a Department of Homeland Security? Why not a Department of Agriculture? And we can just go on and on and on. And in fact, When we get to chapter 13, you're going to do a project where each of you has to take a different part of the government, and I never have enough students to actually do all the parts. I think there's 6 pages worth of departments that are slated that you could study, and it's just a tremendous amount. It's a tremendous size. And so how has government grown so big and gotten outside the box in America? It was point number 4, because our founding fathers didn't specify enough basic rules that only affect all people. Okay? You know, like we stop at red lights and we go at green lights. It doesn't matter which color we pick, but we need to pick some color, and it's understood by all, and this basic rule helps to promote the general welfare. Okay? So we're going to talk about those points more in class. If you have any questions, I'll see you there.